Have you ever watched someone build walls so high they mistake the fortress for a home? This fascinating paradox lies at the heart of how avoidants mistake control for connection, and understanding it might just revolutionize how you see relationships. Those who lean toward avoidant attachment often believe they're creating intimacy when they're actually orchestrating distance. They confuse the puppet strings of control with the genuine threads that bind hearts together. Picture this scenario. Someone meticulously plans every date, chooses every restaurant, decides every activity, then wonders why their partner feels more like an audience member than a participant in their love story. The avoidant person feels deeply connected because they've created exactly the experience they wanted. Their partner, meanwhile, feels invisible, unheard, and strangely alone despite being physically together. This isn't malicious behavior, but rather a protective mechanism gone awry. The roots of this confusion stretch back to childhood, where many future avoidants learned that emotional safety came through self-reliance and predictability. When caregivers were inconsistent, overwhelming, or emotionally unavailable, these children discovered that controlling their environment felt safer than trusting others to meet their needs. Fast forward to adulthood, and this survival strategy becomes their relationship blueprint. They genuinely believe that by controlling the variables, they're creating the perfect conditions for love to flourish. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. What feels like love to the avoidant person often feels like suffocation to their partner. The avoidant individual experiences a deep sense of connection when everything goes according to their plan, when conflict is minimized, when emotions stay at manageable levels. They mistake this orchestrated harmony for genuine intimacy, not realizing that true connection requires vulnerability, unpredictability, and sometimes even beautiful chaos. This misunderstanding creates a tragic irony. The more the avoidant person tries to control the relationship to feel connected, the more disconnected their partner becomes. It's like trying to catch water by squeezing it tighter in your fist. The avoidant person sees their partner pulling away and responds by increasing their efforts to control, creating an exhausting cycle that leaves both people confused and hurt. The avoidant individual thinks they're being loving and thoughtful, while their partner feels increasingly like a character in someone else's play rather than a co-author of their shared story. If you want to better understand someone's attachment style, see the link in the description to one of the most popular books on attachment theory. Consider the tale of Marcus, a successful architect who approached relationships like his most important building project. Every detail needed to be perfect, every element carefully planned and executed. When he met Sarah, a spontaneous artist who thrived on creative chaos, he was instantly captivated by her free spirit. However, instead of embracing the beautiful unpredictability she brought to his life, Marcus began what he thought was a loving renovation project. He would surprise Sarah with perfectly planned dates, always at restaurants he knew she would enjoy, always activities that matched her interests exactly. When she mentioned loving a particular type of music, he would create elaborate playlists. When she casually mentioned wanting to try rock climbing, he would research the best instructors, the safest locations, the proper equipment, and present her with a fully formed plan. To Marcus, these gestures felt deeply romantic and connecting. He was paying attention, anticipating her needs, creating magical experiences tailored specifically for her. But here's where the plot thickens. Sarah began to feel like she was disappearing. Every suggestion she made was immediately absorbed into Marcus's planning machinery and returned to her as a polished production. When she wanted to spontaneously explore a new neighborhood, Marcus would research the best routes, the most interesting stops, and the optimal timing. What should have been an adventure became an itinerary. Sarah found herself longing for the simple joy of getting lost together, of making discoveries in real time. of experiencing genuine surprises. The cognitive bias at play here is called the illusion of control, where people overestimate their ability to control outcomes and believe that more control leads to better results. Marcus genuinely believed that by controlling more variables, he was creating better experiences for Sarah and therefore a stronger connection between them. He couldn't understand why she seemed increasingly distant when he was trying so hard to make everything perfect for her. The turning point came during what Marcus had planned as the perfect romantic weekend getaway. He had researched every restaurant, booked every activity, and even prepared conversation topics to ensure they wouldn't run out of things to talk about. But when an unexpected rainstorm cancelled their outdoor plans, Sarah's face lit up with excitement at the possibility of a lazy day in bed, ordering room service and just being together without an agenda. Marcus, however, immediately went into crisis management mode, frantically researching indoor alternatives and making new reservations. As Sarah watched Marcus on his phone, desperately trying to salvage his perfect plan, she realized that he was more connected to his idea of their relationship than to her actual presence in the room. The man who claimed to love her spontaneity was systematically eliminating every opportunity for it to emerge. She felt like Serena van der Woodsen from Gossip Girl, always performing the role of the perfect girlfriend in someone else's vision rather than being loved for who she authentically was. This revelation led to a difficult but necessary conversation. Sarah helped Marcus understand that his need to control every aspect of their relationship was actually preventing the very connection he sought to create. She explained that true intimacy required space for the unknown, for genuine surprise, for both people to contribute equally to their shared story. Marcus began to see that his controlling behavior wasn't an expression of love but a barrier to it, and this realization would change everything about how he approached relationships moving forward. Now, if you recognize yourself in this pattern, the path forward requires both courage and practice. The first crucial step involves developing awareness of your controlling behaviors and understanding the difference between genuine care and controlling care. Genuine care asks, "What do you need?" and then listens to the answer without immediately trying to fix or improve it. Controlling care assumes it already knows what the other person needs and acts accordingly. Start paying attention to how often you make decisions for your partner, even small ones like choosing where to sit at a restaurant or what movie to watch. Notice when you feel uncomfortable with uncertainty or when your partner's unpredictability triggers your need to take charge. The reasoning behind this awareness practice is that you cannot change patterns you don't recognize. Most avoidant individuals have been controlling for so long that it feels natural and loving to them. They genuinely believe they're being thoughtful when they're actually being controlling. By developing awareness, you create space between the trigger and your response, allowing you to choose a different approach. The second step involves practicing what therapists call productive vulnerability, which means sharing your fears and insecurities instead of trying to control the environment to avoid them. For example, instead of planning every detail of a date to avoid awkward silences, you might say, "Sometimes silence makes me nervous, but maybe we can just see what comes up naturally." This approach invites your partner into your inner world, rather than managing their experience of your outer world. The reasoning here is profound. Vulnerability creates the authentic connection that control can never achieve. When you share your fears, your partner gets to see the real you, and they can respond with genuine care and understanding. This creates a positive cycle where vulnerability is met with safety, encouraging even more authentic sharing. Control, on the other hand, creates distance because your partner only sees the polished version you've carefully constructed. But here's where many people stumble. They try to control their vulnerability, carefully choosing what to share and when to share it. True vulnerability means accepting that your partner might respond in ways you don't expect or prefer. They might not comfort you in exactly the way you want, or they might share something unexpected in return. Learning to stay present with these uncontrolled moments is where real intimacy begins to develop. The third step focuses on developing comfort with your partner's autonomy, which means genuinely celebrating when they make choices that have nothing to do with you. This might sound simple, but for someone who's used to being involved in every decision, it can feel threatening. Practice encouraging your partner to pursue interests, friendships, and experiences independently. Notice when you feel the urge to insert yourself into their plans or offer unsolicited advice about their choices. The reasoning behind this step addresses a fundamental truth about healthy relationships. Two whole, autonomous people choosing to be together create much stronger connections than two half people trying to complete each other. When you genuinely celebrate your partner's independence, you signal that you love them for who they are, not for how well they fit into your plans. This creates safety for them to be authentic, which ultimately gives you access to the genuine connection you've been seeking through control. Think of Joe Goldberg from the Netflix series You, whose obsessive need to control every aspect of Beck's life stemmed from his deep fear of abandonment. His controlling behavior, which he justified as love and protection, ultimately destroyed the very connection he desperately wanted to preserve. The lesson here is that trying to control someone to keep them close actually pushes them away, while giving them freedom to choose you creates the foundation for them to genuinely want to stay. The fourth step involves learning to find connection through shared uncertainty rather than shared control. Instead of planning every aspect of your time together, suggest activities where neither of you knows exactly what will happen. Take an art class together, go for a hike on an unfamiliar trail, or attend an event neither of you has experienced before. The goal is to practice being genuinely present with each other when you can't control the outcome. This approach works because it mimics the natural rhythm of healthy relationships, where two people navigate life's uncertainties together. When you face the unknown together, you develop trust in your ability to handle whatever comes up as a team. This builds real confidence in the relationship, as opposed to the false confidence that comes from controlling every variable. Remember Emily Cooper from Emily in Paris, who often found her most meaningful connections when she was completely out of her comfort zone and couldn't rely on her usual strategies for managing situations. Learning to be present with uncertainty also helps you develop tolerance for your partner's complex emotions. When someone is sad, angry, or confused, the controlling response is to immediately try to fix or change their emotional state. The connecting response is to simply be present with them in whatever they're feeling, trusting that emotions are temporary and that your presence matters more than your solutions. The fifth and perhaps most challenging step requires recognizing that real love sometimes feels uncomfortable, unpredictable, and out of your control, and learning to find safety in that discomfort rather than trying to eliminate it. This means staying present when your partner is upset, instead of immediately trying to solve their problem. It means allowing conversations to go in unexpected directions, instead of steering them toward predetermined outcomes. It means accepting that healthy relationships include conflict, mess, and moments of disconnection alongside the joy and intimacy. The profound reasoning behind this step is that genuine intimacy requires risk. When you love someone without trying to control them, you risk being hurt, disappointed, or surprised in uncomfortable ways. But you also open yourself to being delighted, inspired, and loved in ways you never could have planned or predicted. The controlled version of love feels safer, but ultimately leaves you hungry for something more authentic. The uncontrolled version feels scarier, but feeds your soul in ways that no amount of planning ever could. As we reach the conclusion of this exploration, it becomes clear that the journey from control to connection isn't just about changing behaviors, but about fundamentally shifting how you understand love itself. The avoidant person who mistakes control for connection is often someone who learned early that love was conditional, unpredictable, or dangerous. They developed control strategies not because they're selfish or manipulative, but because they're trying to create the safety they never experienced as children. Understanding this origin story creates compassion both for yourself and for the avoidant people in your life. The person who plans every detail of your dates isn't trying to diminish you. They're trying to create a perfect experience because they believe that's what love looks like. The person who gives unsolicited advice isn't trying to control you. They're trying to help you avoid the pain they've experienced themselves. Recognition of these good intentions doesn't excuse controlling behavior, but it does provide a framework for addressing it with kindness rather than resentment. The transformation from control to connection requires grieving the illusion that you can love someone safely. There is no risk-free version of authentic intimacy. You cannot guarantee that someone will stay, that they won't hurt you, or that loving them won't sometimes feel overwhelming and uncertain. But what you lose in the illusion of safety, you gain in the reality of genuine connection. When you love someone without trying to control them, you get to experience being truly known and chosen by another person. You get to discover what it feels like when someone stays, not because you've managed them perfectly, but because they genuinely want to build a life with you. Your call to action begins with a single moment of awareness today. Notice one instance where you're trying to control a situation or person instead of connecting with them. Maybe you're planning your partner's day off, giving unsolicited advice to a friend, or steering a conversation away from discomfort. In that moment, pause and ask yourself, what would connection look like right now instead of control? Then experiment with that different approach, even if it feels uncomfortable or uncertain. Remember that this transformation doesn't happen overnight. The neural pathways that equate control with love have been developing for years or even decades. Be patient with yourself as you learn new ways of being in relationships. Celebrate small victories, like allowing a conversation to be awkward instead of filling every silence, or supporting your partner's decision even when you would choose differently. Each time you choose connection over control, you're rewiring your brain to recognize what genuine intimacy actually feels like. The most beautiful part of this journey is discovering that the connection you've been seeking through control was always available through vulnerability. When you let go of trying to orchestrate perfect experiences, you become available for the perfectly imperfect moments that create real intimacy. When you stop trying to manage other people's emotions, you get to witness their full humanity and be witnessed in yours. This is the love that your controlling strategies were always reaching toward but could never quite grasp. Now you know the secret. Sometimes you have to let go of the wheel to truly arrive at your destination.
Thank you for watching. If you want to learn how to better understand avoidance, relationships, and psychological biases, then subscribe to our channel, because you deserve beautiful relationships.